Scum one, scum all, and scum as you are. I'm Vulture Culture, and tonight we're going to be checking out the Roland JX-3P analog synthesizer from 1983 and the Roland Alpha Juno 2 analog synthesizer from 1985. So these sort of represent what I think are the best alternatives in the vintage market to a Juno 106, and we're going to be checking them out with the retroactive PG2K and the retroactive MPG50 Mark II, which are programmers from the homies over at Retroactive. They make the coolest gear for vintage synth snobs. Can I get some scum snobs in the chat? Because what they are is dedicated programmers that give you access to all of the knobs and faders that weren't built into the synths at the time. And the thing about the Juno 106 is that although it is iconic, it is a simple synthesizer. It's got the knobs and stuff built in, but it can't do what either of these two synths can in terms of flexibility. And I think both of these synthesizers are super underrated. Right now, as of today, this live stream, I was looking online to see how much these are going for, and you can get an Alpha Juno 2 for $500 from Guitar Center today, which is incredible when you think about what an incredible synthesizer it is. And people all the time say this synth doesn't sound warm, but to me, listening to this, I think it sounds absolutely gorgeous. And today, a really good deal, I saw a Roland JX-3P on Reverb for $700 with shipping, which is incredible to me. Remember, it wasn't that long ago that Juno 106s were selling for $2,500. So even though I think it's worth it to buy one of these and then add something like a PG2K, you're still saving a lot of money compared to buying a Juno 106, even though, of course, those synths are iconic. And so we're going to be both having a friendly competition between the two synths, as well as just discussing what I love about these synths, and I always love hearing your stories as well. And check this out too. I deliberately picked sort of a colder sound with the JX-3P because it's considered such a warm synthesizer because it has the Roland Jupiter 8 filter built into it. But this bell tone, using the cross mod built in, actually sounds awesome. I love that sound. It's very bright and cuts through like a knife. I think it's an incredible synth sound. And the other really great thing about these sounds are they are not presets built into these synths. And in fact, they're not even presets from here. They're randomly generated patches. So the retroactive programmers have this really neat feature called a patch generator, where you can pick which category of sound you want. So for instance, on the PG2K, we've got bass, polysynth sounds, pads, effects, piano, strings, brass, bells, or an initialized patch. And right now we're on bells here, right? But if I hit enter, it'll just create another patch. And I can hit enter again, we'll get another bells patch. Not really a bells patch. Let's try another one. Yeah, so you could just get these infinite patches that the programmer spits out for you. And like I'm saying, they're not pre-programmed. I mean, and just what a awesome sound that these synths have. Totally underrated. Nick says the same BBD chorus chips as the Alpha. Yes, they are really great. I love the Roland choruses, and the Alpha Juno has the added advantage of actually being able to control the rate, the speed of the chorus, which you couldn't do on a Juno 106. Blackman says he saw a Skinny Puppy with one of these. That's awesome. That must have been some hell of a show. Dubstation says 2 DCOs is greater than pulse with a saw and a sub oscillator. Changed my mind. I'm a slut for detune. Yeah, and that's me as well. Actually seeing you perform live at KnobCon has somewhat changed my mind as far as the bass lines go. I do like a sub oscillator for bass lines just because it locks the phase in really tight. But yeah, I mean, it's just just an incredible sound. And then over here, if we go over to, let's say, what's a good, do we have polysynth? Let's go ahead and try some randomized patches over here on the Juno. We try another one. Do I have a stuck note here? Oh no. I've got oh no, I gotta clean that contact. I lost the Donkey Kong Country cartridge. Let's try a couple more. Oh, it's gore. That's a good one. So you can hear that both of these synthesizers could sound so warm and fat, which is phenomenal. We're going to start off by actually just pulling up an initialize patch here. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. There's actually a quick way to do it, which is shift LFO1, and that should initialize the JX-3P. And then on the Alpha Juno. Now, like Nick with COs, digitally controlled analog oscillators on the JX-3P. And we have 1 plus a sub per voice. And so we'll start off by comparing that, but then we will jump into the filter, which is probably the interesting thing. But before we do that, can I get some scum cheers in the chat? I'm going to be drinking this Collective Arts, let's see if I can get this to focus on there. Collective Arts Stranger Than Coffee Maple Syrup Porter tonight. And love myself a good dark beer. And I'd just like to say a big cheers to everybody who hangs out every Wednesday night here on YouTube on this channel. That's a thing, by the way. We do a live stream every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, checking out synthesizer stuff. And I appreciate all of you guys, this wonderful community of people that loves to hang out, get fucked up, and talk about synthesizers. So for you guys, can I get some scum cheers in the chat? I appreciate it very much, guys. Cheers. Ooh, that's a big bad stout. And by stout, I mean porter. It's not too sweet either. So what we can do is go to oscillator mix and move it all the way to the left. And cheers, Glenn. And then we could check out just the sound of the sawtooth. And I'd be curious if it's actually any different. Juno's a little quieter. Oh, right. I gotta go get this contact clean. Yeah, the oscillators are exactly the same, which isn't that surprising. I just drank the whiskey and downed it over there. That's what happened to it. Just a second ago, before I cut in, because in the future this video will be edited down to just this section. So yeah, they're both Roland synthesizers. It's not surprising that the sawtooth sound exactly the same, but of course we do have a square wave on both of these synths. So the way we can access that is actually turn the sawtooth off and turn the square wave on over here. And so let's see how that sounds. Well, there might be a little difference in brightness. Just turn the volume down. Might be a little bit of something, but I don't really hear too much of a difference. Could just be a tuning thing, because it sounds like one of these is slightly out of tune. I forget, does this have a tuning thing on it? Or I think it does somewhere, but doesn't really matter. They're close enough, but we can hear that pretty tight as far as tuning goes. But where this changes is over here on the JX-3P, we have many fewer shapes. So that's kind of the defining feature of the Alpha Junos. We have a bunch of different oscillator shapes. I'm going to run through them quickly because I have covered these synths on other streams. So we've got like a narrow pulse in the sawtooth. So those are our only options with DCO1. DCO2 also has a noise source. Okay, so that's what we have. Over on the Alpha Juno, we have many, many more options. We have sawtooth. We have a sawtooth that's chopped up like a saw wave or like a jigsaw or a table saw. And these are great for not only for chiptune stuff, but to get more FM-y type sounds out of these synths. Then we've got pulse. We've got saw pulse modification. So this is one of the only synthesizers, analog synthesizers, that has sawtooth modulation, which is pretty crazy. So we can actually get pulse width modulation, but with a sawtooth wave. That's what's going on there. We've got a sawtooth wave that's like many little peaks. These are great for these huge overtones. Then we can move on and we have this really interesting wave shape, which is, again, these little peaks, but nothing in the middle. And man, is that a thin sound. And I think that's why several people still subscribe to the conspiracy theory that the Alpha Juno is somehow a digital oscillator synthesizer. But that's not the case. It's fully analog. It's just digitally controlled. It is the case, though, that these wave shapes can get very, very bright sounding. And I think that's what led to that misconception. Turning that off, we can turn the square wave on. We can get a narrower square wave, which I'd just be interested, actually, if that's the same narrow square wave as what we have over on the JX-3P. It's not at all. It's much more narrow on the JX-3P, so just something to think about. I appreciate it very much, Nick. I'll check that out later. I absolutely should be cleaning out the contacts on my synths. I got this one repaired, but that's something I'll definitely do because it's time. Kenzie Price, that was of course my thought. The AX60 can do it, but it does it in kind of a weird way that isn't my favorite. It sounds good on the saw and triangle wave modulation, but it almost sounds like it's just blending in the square wave. What's the other synth? Oh, the SX240 kind of has like a weird thing like that too. Something to think about. Moving on, we then have a sub oscillator. So what's interesting about this is they're not truly discrete oscillators. It doesn't have a sawtooth and a square that are two separate oscillators that can detune or beat against each other. They're in perfect phase with each other. It's just a separate wave shape from the same oscillator. So turning on the sawtooth and the square wave, we can actually get both at the same time. Bring the volume down a bit now. So this is something we can't do on the JX-3P. And then we also have a sub oscillator. So real quick, let's just run through that. Let's turn the sub level off. So this is 2 octaves down, and then the 2 octaves down, but a narrower shape. 2 octaves down. That's correct, Walter. So I love the key bed on the Alpha Juno 2 as well as the D50. I think it's 2 of the best key beds. It's the same and just feels great. They're my personal favorites as far as vintage synths go, I think. There might be 1 or 2 that's a little bit, but I think off the top of my head, the D50 and the Alpha Juno have the best key beds. That's sort of not always at the top of my list when I'm thinking about vintage synths because I'm more about the sound and how you interact with them, but I do think that's definitely a thing. I can't think of any other synths that do saw width mod, Kenzie. But if anybody has any ideas, please let me know. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump right into the filter. That's probably what everybody's most interested in, right? So we'll just do a low sawtooth sound. Oh, and of course I should cover while we're in the oscillators here that we can have multiple on the JX-3P. up until now, it seems like, wait, the Alpha Juno can do so much more than the JX-3P, but it doesn't have 2 oscillators per voice, and that's where this one gets really great, where we can detune these. Right? I mean, just, it sounds so big. We can get really fat with it. And of course, that's where the Alpha Juno is not going to quite live up. Although when you turn on, you know, the sub and the sawtooth and the square, especially if we, like, say, put them both onto pulse width, we can get some pretty fat sounds as well. You know, what I love about the Alpha Juno, and I've said it again, and it seems like people don't agree with me as much, so, you know, take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, but I just love the clarity of the synth. I always feel like I can really hear every little detail in that sound because it's not cluttered up. On the other hand, I love a good lush. Hard to say. They're both really great. You know, in terms of sound, they're going to give you different sounds. You can't get one sound with the other. Even if you try to use the oscillator an octave down on a square wave, let's say, it's not going to sound exactly the same as the sub oscillator that's locked in perfect phase of the Alpha Juno. So it's going to be interesting. Blackman points out that the JX-3P has no aftertouch. That's true. If you're interested in aftertouch and want a synth like the JX-3P, that would be the JX-8P. And the JX-8P shares the same filter with the Alpha Juno. So it's kind of this interesting little dance you have to do when it comes to the Alpha Junos and the JX series, where they're all a little different, and there isn't, you know, like the optimal one would be something like a JX-10, but with the chips from the JX-3P. That would be the overall, that is to say the filter and the oscillators and everything from the JX-3P, but in a JX-10. That would be the dream. But as it stands, you sort of go with JX-3P if you want that really great vintage tone with the Jupiter 8 filter. JX-8P, amazing synthesizer. It's going to have the same filter as the Alpha Juno, which is going to be a little bit brighter. JX-10, a little bit compromised, but is essentially two JX-8Ps stacked on top of each other for maximum success. Basically, the Udo Super Gemini of 1985 or so. Nick asks, you prefer the Alpha keybed over the SY? Well, I was sort of not, I looked over at it, I thought about it, I was like, I'm not going to throw that in because, it is vintage, so I guess I can. But I was thinking like that's like 91, so it's not entirely fair to compare. But the SY99 has an incredible keybed as well. Almost unfair, so. It's very piano-y, though. It's a little piano-y, so... that to me, like, I like the synth action of the Roland from this era. God, I love alcohol. Synth Theory says, Saw with mod. Look to your right, haha, Chroma Polaris. Right, that one can do it. It's right there. Man, it's hard living with a low IQ. Anyways, people don't like it when I make fun of my low IQ. That's, they get upset. So I won't continue to do that. Let's just add some release to this sound. I think I need to assign this envelope to the... Yeah, until I've actually assigned this envelope to the VCA by doing that. There we go. And we'll do the same thing over here. We just need to select an envelope and increase the volume all the way on the alpha. You can hear this one's a little sharp, but that's just the detune of that oscillator there. You'll notice a difference in the attack as well with the Alpha Juno because, of course, it's the same. It doesn't have that free running sound to it, so. A little bit more natural sound on the JX-3P, but you don't always want that, so it depends. I would prefer for like a bass line to have that really sharp attack that we're getting over here on the Alpha. So anyways, just another little thing to think about. But now we have a nice thick octave sound. We'll go ahead and do a little filter sweep. Get a little volume going. Wow, that sounds good. Let's get a little more volume. Over here on the Alpha Juno, let's go ahead. Thick. Adam, welcome to the stream. I bought a JX-3P for 500 Canadian and a PG200. I trade for a Behringer Poly D. The PG200 was new in box, and this is an amazing setup. So you traded your Behringer Poly D for a 200. Is that what I'm understanding? If you did, that is awesome. So again, we'll just do a quick little power comparison. Sweet baby Jesus. %50 resonance on both. We'll see what we think. Vowel-y character to it. Moving over to the Alpha Juno. Interesting. A little bit more of a precise sort of sound to the filter. What do we think of the filter so far? Let the spiritual cleansing begin. Yeah, versus... Yeah, you know what's so funny is the Alpha Juno has a reputation for the filter not being that powerful because you can't drive it into self-oscillation like you can on a Juno 106, 6, or 60. But in this case, at the 50% mark, it's actually pushing a little bit more resonance than the JX-3P, which I wasn't expecting. Advantage says, I love how the PG2K gets rid of the filter stepping on the JX-3P. Yeah, that's one of the advantages of the weird proprietary sort of language that Roland was using at the time for the programmer as separate from MIDI. Yeah, the JX sounds really raw. I agree, Walter. The Roy says the 3P sounds like a little Jupiter 8, and that's because it is. It's the same filter as the Jupiter 8, which is not in the Juno series. So again, that's what really, I think, elevates a 3P. And I said it earlier, but if you guys don't realize how cheap you can get one of these, I saw one of these for $700 on Reverb today. $700 for a synth this good. Pretty incredible. Let's go ahead and bring the resonance up to 75% and see what we get. Just singing, but actually still, I would say, pretty in check. I'm surprised. Alpha Juno. Oh, the bass. Oh, the bass. It's gonna make me come. Over here. Yeah, so right around the 75% mark, interestingly, you get this sort of thing where the two filters seem very evenly matched. So the Juno kind of pushes hard up to about 50%, but at 75, they're very similar. Let's go ahead and go 100% for the lulls. Get some pretty good scream in there. And then over here on the Alpha Juno. Yeah, this is where you can hear the difference. I think a very powerful filter, but is not driving into self-oscillation the way the the JX-3P is. Walter, to answer your question as well as something Blackman said earlier, so my JX-3P is a stock JX-3P. It's not a Kiwi modded JX-3P. A lot of people have questions about the mods. In general, like Tontech mods, for instance, usually are just improvements but kind of retain the core character of the synthesizer. Kiwi mods have a tendency to add extra features and things to synths, which can be cool, but when it comes to like a Kiwi modded Poly 6, Kiwi modded JX-3P, it changes the envelope shapes and things like that change the sound of the synth. And for me, as far as vintage synths go, am not currently interested in Kiwi modding this, although it would add a unison mode not present on the synth as it is stock. So the JX-3P has no unison mode, which is a bit of a bummer for a synth like this. For me, it's just kind of part of it. I don't mind it. I think once you have the chorus on everything, it's fat enough. But you can get a Kiwi mod for it. And this programmer from Retroactive, both of them are designed to work with Kiwi modded or not. So I guess I would say I have a little bit of Kiwi mod bias. I'm a little like against Kiwi mods, but I think they're for certain people, probably just not for me. And I like retaining that authentic character. I don't necessarily want a vintage synth to necessarily be a modern synth, right? I like that it's got some weird, quirky limitations. On the other hand, like the Tontech mods for the SX240, Akai X60, Oberheim Matrix 6, those mods help the CPUs handle MIDI, for instance, but they don't really change too much about the sound. So that would be my opinion here. PGT2K programmers arriving later this week. Can't wait to try it out, given the programming slider is broken on my JX-3P. Oh, that's pretty brutal. Yes, well, you will be happy. I am always a big fan of recommending these products. Nell says, sounds similar to my SH3A. Do they have the same filter as the SH3A? I actually don't think so. I think the SH3A is more derived from the earlier Roland modular stuff, if I'm correct. Yes. The Alpha has the same IR3RO5 chip like the 8P. That is correct. And same thing as the JX10, I believe. Synth Theory says the Jupiters and the Juno 6660 all share the same IR3109 filter chip. The Alpha and JX8 and 10 share the same filter chip, but it sounds way better in the Alpha in my opinion. So it's not entirely true, Synth Theory. The Juno 660 and Jupiters share a filter chip. But it is not the same chip in the Juno 106. That actually has a different chip. So just that's another reason that the JX-3P arguably is a better synth than the Juno 106. So that would be my opinion, but of course everybody's entitled to their own opinions, right? Blackman says the SH3A is a diode ladder. So these are not ladder filters, that's for sure. The organics mod for the JX-3P sounds the same as the original. Alex West, welcome to the stream, by the way. Walter says, I get it. One question, what do you think of the build quality between these two? That's a great question. Oh, what am I... They're both really good. They both feel built like a tank. I would say that the Alpha Juno has a slightly better key bed, but of course the thing that people don't like about the synth is it just doesn't look very nice. But it's heavy, made of metal. If anything, the JX-3P, it's got a metal faceplate, but the sides are plastic. Is this plastic? I think this is plastic on the side here. They're both tanks. Like, they're both heavier than you would think for their size. Roland was really making gear that was designed to be taken on the road at this era. I know that this thing probably, the Alpha Juno probably looks like a cheap plastic synth. It is not. It is a very tough built synth. I don't think it deserves its reputation as being like a cheap synth as far as build quality goes at all. But that's, you know, of course, again, it's going to be different things. Real quick, while we're talking about filters, let's turn off the cutoff and resonance here and just try to get these about right. In the neighborhood, Walter, that is funny. We have a high pass filter on both. You'll notice it's fully variable on the JX-3P. Over here on the Alpha Juno, it's actually just stepped. As far as range, we get pretty thin over here. I don't know what the difference in the actual frequency response is, but they sound close enough as to probably be irrelevant, the difference. Of course, with the Alpha Juno, when the high-pass filter is all the way down, it's actually adding a little bit of a bass boost. I don't think that's the case on the JX-3P, but I could be wrong. If someone knows the answer to that, that's great. Let's talk about the chorus real quick. Let's just take this sound. Let's add a little resonance. Get it to talk a little bit, you know, and we'll add the envelope here. We'll add some envelope. We'll try to get something similar over here. Oh, that resonance is so beautiful and powerful. So we're going to add some of this. That filter just has such power. We're sort of in the ballpark. We're kind of, you know, already you can hear how these two synths are starting to diverge, right? This synth is just so fat. Hard to match them. it's just trying to get them kind of close. That way we can compare the chorus in a meaningful way. So with this synth, it's as simple as just hitting that fucking chorus button right in here. And we can hear how this sounds now. We can turn the chorus on over here, and we should get something similar. It's got a little bit more of that Hoovery thing, right? So we can turn that, we slow that down a little bit. Little too loud. You can hear how that the velocity is much more impactful here, or impacting the sound at all, really. Really sharp sort of sound to it. Jay Bognap, welcome to the stream. Yes, it does have a really great sequencer. From your examples, Walter says, the JX is what people envisioned when they think analog. Yes. Yes, the Roland chorus is the greatest of all time. I agree. It's crazy, isn't it? What are chords? What is music? Let's try music again. Let's add. Hey, thank you for the subscription. Is that what I'm seeing there? Yeah. We can get it real warbly too. Wow, just, you know, it's just incredible the way that these can... Take that down a little so it's a little... Take it real slow. So this is like the advantage. You can get it there where it's like... It seems like it increases not just the rate, but also the stereo width. Yeah, it definitely does. You need to like push it past the 50% mark for better or worse, which is kind of a little bit of a shame, really. Wow, that's crazy how much it pushes. Zilla, welcome. Yeah, it's really good. I agree, Kenzie, that the JX has the edge on just staple analog stuff. Let's go ahead and initialize these presets again. So we're just kind of back to where we were, and then we'll do the same thing over here. We just go to patch gen, initialize sound, main, and we can just get back to a regular sound. In this case, I'm going to drop this, and I'm going to do the Dubstation 0 baseline test to see if we get sort of like an SH101 type sound out of this. So the trick is the lower oscillator needs to be a square wave. Oh, that's pretty good. And the upper oscillator will be a sawtooth wave. We're going to do the same thing by picking a sawtooth wave and just increasing the sub level over here. Have a great night, Autumn. I love you. We'll bring the resonance up a bit. So we've got I've got about 50% resonance in this just deep bass tone. Sounds very good over here on the JX. There's something about the way the filter on the Alpha Juno is, where it just, the bass is really big and beefy. That's not there on the JX-3P, which is weird because once you start getting a sound going, the Alpha starts to sound thinner, but listen to that shit. This is good, but, you know. It's almost like no resonance is better. Oh, no, it's better on the Alpha Juno. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe a higher cutoff. See, the difference is here, you start to... over here, you get this beautiful, like, harmonic. Oh, God, that is fat. That's a motherfucker right there. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of the envelope to this so we can get a little pluck going. All right, you know how we like a little... So time 1 all the way down, level 1 up all the way, level 2 down, 3 down, no release. So we can see how tight we can get this sound. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We'll apply the envelope to the filter here. Should be set up, and we should be able to... Now, people always say the envelopes on the JX are slow. Decisive Koala, welcome to the stream. Oh, that sounds so good. Oh, okay, so over here. Oh, that low end is crazy, though. Interesting, isn't it, how the resonance on this is so vowely. But what's interesting is now listening to these two, as you crank the resonance, this has this incredible vowely. Or with no resonance, it just gets this like fat. resonance, whereas over on the Juno, just like the low end is there, but the synth feels far away, you know, like maybe a little less envelope amount. Yeah, that's probably what it is. It's because the envelope amount on the JX-3P doesn't go as far as the Alpha Juno. I actually turned it down even further. Ooh. It just sounds so good over here. Wow. You can hear that the cutoff can also dig lower than the, like it can go deeper than you can get on the JX-3P. So there's a little bit more range overall on the Alpha Juno. For better or worse, I don't really think I'm missing it on the JX-3P. Can I get some more scum cheers in the chat? Let us intoxicate together, my friends. Or if you're not drinking, that's fine too. I love that. I love my friends who don't drink. Nothing wrong with that. Probably better lives. So anyways, guys, cheers. That was a drinking sound. So yeah, to me, these synths just represent what's so awesome about vintage synthesizers. It's such a great price point, and you can just do so much with both of them. And I'm such an evangelist for these guys because I just think they sound great. They're beautiful and amazing, and you know, it's a shame that people look down on these for one reason or another. I mean, it's basically because they didn't come with the knobs and faders. Let's see here. Dubstation says 3P better filter, but I still love the 8P, which has one of those great pad patches of all time soundtrack, which interestingly has 0 resonance. Yeah, I would say without a doubt that the soundtrack patch is the greatest patch, synth patch of all time, synth pad patch. I was used by Angela Badalamenti. I don't know if you get to see this here. I've got a Twin Peaks laser disc here. So Angela Badalamenti used a JX-10, so same synth basically as the JX-3P, but used the soundtrack patch for the strings in this, layered with a Roland T50. And yeah, it's just the greatest of all time, without a doubt. Yeah, so it's interesting to hear the way that this can sound. Overall, on the bass thing, I think that it sounds really great. Of course, where we could kind of take it now is away from like a pluckier sort of sound to more of a Reesier type sound. So in this case, we can find we'll start somewhere like there, and we'll add some LFO. We get a little dubstep. And we actually have just a couple of different shapes here. I think I've covered this before, so I won't spend a big time on it, but we've got sine wave. You get your low wubs. Then we also got square. Can be useful for certain rhythmic things. And then we've got sample and hold. It's gonna be cool for those types of sounds, a little sci-fi. But we're gonna get a little bit more of a real slow wub. We're gonna turn the amount down a lot. So it would just add that movement into the sound. Growl. But really the trick to a Reese is going to be adding this. Hey, Bognap, has anybody tried the Pro 800? My friend Nick has. We're gonna detune. That's where the magic happens. Now we can add a little bit of movement to the sound as well by adding some attack and decay to it, right? With the envelope. But we're gonna need some slow movement. There we go. And we don't need much. We can go negative here too, which is interesting. Oh, that's kind of a cool sound. That's a way that we could actually kind of create like a pluck and Reese type sound. Actually very cool. Sebastian says, you were just reminding me of a moment back in the day using sample and hold LFOs when sampling from an analog synth, quick way to get various cutoff parts to use as a velocity layers in a sampler. Gingy, welcome to the stream. How's it going? Yeah. So yeah, that, you know, I know that Nick uses, he'll sample like 12 different cutoff points on his vintage synths to use during his modular sets, which I think is a super cool way to get that. But I'd never thought of actually using sample and hold as a way to get different variations. It's very clever. Alex West says, I had a Pro 800, got rid of it before they fixed the envelopes. I think it's good now. It doesn't sound like these Rolands, though. Snapshot, welcome to the stream. How's it going, Snapshot Music? There's someone that's like 6 hours away from me selling a JX-3P for $600. Debating on making the drive. Just bought a Matrix 6 thanks to you. Well, Matrix 6 is an awesome synth. $600 is a great deal. I might drive for $600. That's a pretty good one. Depends. I would just make sure that it's in great condition. A lot of the times the analog bucket brigade delay chips, chorus chips on the JX-3Ps like to get hissy, noisy, just like the Junos. As you can hear on mine, that's not a problem. I have a really great quality one. I'm surprised it's made it this long without that being needed to be repaired. But I would just ask the seller some questions like, hey, how are those chips sounding? Because a lot of times with these synths, people will not fully like admit up front. And it still might be worth it, but maybe you could just knock some price off of it. He or she can knock a little price off if there's any problems with it. A thought. Yes. Zazilla says, you're driving your broadcast compressor too much when playing, which lowers your voice a lot during playing. It's actually sidechain, so that's not it just like clipping into the red. That's actually a deliberate thing where when I'm playing a synth, I have it pull my voice back deliberately. Yeah. Not this, Nick. Yeah. I hear you, man. Any known problems with the Alpha Juno? Walter asks. I feel like every synth has problems. It could, a lot of times membrane panels like to go, but no, actually, I think aside from that the key contacts get fucked up, as you can see, I've just got a dead key out of the fucking blue. Aside from that, which I know, I want to say Starsky Carr has the same issue, and he's like cleaned the key contacts multiple times, and he just keeps having problems with it. Aside from that, I think these things are actually pretty tough. With the Junos and the early JXs, you just get like noisy chorus chips. That's just what ends up happening. Walter says, I'm too poor to be anti-Behringer. Alex says, the problem with JX-3P is that without a mod or a retroactive controller, it's a real pain. Doesn't respond to CC or system exclusive. Yeah. Zozilla asks, have you tried the Roland Cloud version? I haven't. If that's the type of thing you guys would like me to do, more comparisons of, you know, these vintage synths versus the Roland versions or the Arturio versions, I can do that, of course. For me, I feel like a lot of other synth tubers have already covered that. I don't know if, I mean, I'm not aware that someone's done the JX-3P versus the Roland Cloud, although that seems like something Starsky Carr would have already done. If he hasn't, I would do it. Yeah, let's see. Snapshot says, yeah, my Juno 106 has noisy chorus chips. I have replacements that haven't gotten around to them. Yes, the CZ1 is here. Hopefully getting it repaired soon. That way we can check it out. This is a sick bassline patch. Forgot the most important part, the chorus. I'll tell you exactly what the problem is. This thing turns on, it says Casio CZ1, and that's it. I can't get any of the buttons or knobs to respond. I actually did use the initialize button will work when I'm booting it up, but when I go to press yes to initialize, nothing happens. So it's not looking good. Something's got to be done in there. Let's see. Dubstation Zero says, bang for the buck, Alpha 1 and a Novation Zero Mark II for $100. I'd probably make that happen for about $500 altogether as a stock knob per function Sysx templates for the Alpha. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the way to go with the Novation Zero Mark II. Walter says, Starsky Carr is doing it wrong, and I'd have to check humidity levels on his Studio 2, but those key beds are first generation silicon chips. There are some design issues that got improved. Let's see. Nell asks, do you think the ACB technology in the System 8 is more true to the original than Zen Core on Roland Cloud? Yes, I do. When you listen to the comparisons, it is much closer. The way to think about it is the Zen Core stuff, as I understand it, I'm not an expert on Zen Core. I don't have the Roland Cloud subscription or anything. But the filters are more generic models. And that's true even for like the SH4D, which has its own, just like you can load different oscillator types from different vintage synthesizers into it, but the filter's the same on all of them. And that's true with, like, say, the boutiques. So the JD08, the recreation of the Roland JD800, that does not have a model JD800 filter in it. It has a generic Zencore filter. That doesn't mean that the synths don't sound great, though. I mean, I think the thing is that with those synths, it's more about like getting in the ballpark. For people who sit here and can really hear the difference in the filters, and there's a pretty big difference, I think, between these two. But it's going to be one of those things where we're going to hear the difference. I don't know if it really matters. But again, I kind of come from the perspective of making music and putting it out there at that level. From that level of analysis, like if you're making a track, I don't think Dua Lipa's song Levitating would have been worse if they hadn't used an actual vintage Roland VP330 and instead just used the Roland Cloud version. It probably would have been the same, would have sold the exact same number of records. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think that sound made or broke it. You know what I mean? But from the perspective of if you're doing this because you like the sound of this circuitry, right? Zencore might not get you there always. It's great in the sense that you can have an instrument like, say, the Juno X that has so many incredible sounds in it, right? I mean, it's beyond looking and sounding like a Juno, close to it. It's more that it can just go so far as like loading pianos and strings and shit. It's like a very powerful rompler. Let's see. So I hope I answered your question there. DeCarmic00, welcome to the stream. A local Guitar Center has a Juno 1 for $500. It would be my first vintage synth. For a mostly VST user, is it worth it? How can you get one fixed? I think the great thing about Guitar Center is they have a 3-day return policy on their synths. Vintage synths, that is. If you buy a new one, it's different. I think it's more like a week or a month or something like that. So what I would recommend is get it shipped to your local Guitar Center. Don't get it shipped to your house because they're really bad at it. I've had several synths get destroyed in shipping from Guitar Center. So hopefully you live near a Guitar Center. You said there's a local one. Test it out. You've got 3 days to test it out. Make sure everything works. If not everything works for $500, I do not think an Alpha Juno 1 is worth that. Like, you probably get a better deal for one that's working 100%. So I hope I answered your question there. Walter, I agree with that. Let's see. Gingy says the CG probably has dry solder joints. Also change out the double A's at factory reset can help a lot. The relays to prevent pop at startup and need contact cleaning as well. Yeah, I'm at some point what you just said went over my head. Zazilla says, notice that Legends has velocity for filter while the Zencore only has it for the JX-8P. Notice the Legends. I don't know what that means, so sorry. C-Ray says, what sounds better live, hardware or software synths? C-Ray, I think that is such a loaded question. That is like dropping a bomb on this chat as far as it goes. I mean, the biggest thing I can say about playing live, and I don't know if everybody's going to like what I'm about to say, but, you know, the reason we come here is because I have a lot of shit to say and a lot of shit to talk. I want you to consider the fact that you're probably running your synthesizers and mix into a subpar mixer that is already going to color your sound, and then the real damage is going to happen when you use cheap, club speakers that are not frequency balanced at all. Even in the best case scenario where they have really great speakers in a room, that room is going to add so much comb filtering and damage the sound from how it should sound optimally. It's going to poke holes all through, especially the low end. You're going to go for a note and you're just not going to hear anything, that type of shit. And that's a good case scenario, right? When you consider all of that, the differences between something like a really good software emulation of the JX-3P or the Alpha Juno or whatever we're talking about, and the real thing, I think it's out the window. When we're in the studio and you can really hear the differences, there's something there, but I'm not convinced there's that. Answer it, but that question's so broad, C. Ray, as to almost be difficult to answer, because I know it's not, I want to catch up with the chat, but I also want to just keep working on this bass line. Let's see here. Let's see. Snapshot says, actually, it's 45 days. Not on the vintage stuff, though. Vintage is only 3 days. Philip says there's 2 Alpha Juno ones for $300. $500 is not cheap for an Alpha Juno 1. Yeah. Gingy, thank you for your advice. Vanessa asks, what is the most extreme difference, good or bad, between them? Let's see. Zazilla, I'm not hating on Behringer. Or let me say it this way. I don't ever hate on people who have Behringer stuff. I have a couple of Behringer preamps over there. I think what it is like going forward what their business practices are. And I have to be conscious, too, of the fact that there is a good number of, there's something like, I don't know what it is. Something like 10,000 people watch this channel a month, right? Which blows my fucking mind, right? I think it's like 7, 8, 9, 10,000 or something like that. So I just have to be aware of what I say ethically can have an impact. That's all there is. But I don't ever hate anybody for, and I love the idea of a company that's trying to make synthesis cheaper for people to get into and to make quality products and to get more musicians making music. That's great. Behringer is not only that company, unfortunately. They also have some stuff that's more controversial, which I don't really want to get into. 2 hours away is a pretty good drive, Mark. Kenzie says you should do some sound engineering tips, tutorials for synths and stuff. Well, I think I brought that up at the beginning of the stream. You might not have been here yet. That I'm asking you guys to send me some synth jams. So just whether it's stems or it's just a single stereo file of, whatever hardware setup you have going, because I actually want to do a stream where I just talk about how to use some free plugins to actually make your mixes sound much more professional. As far as, when if you're gonna go to put it out on YouTube and Spotify and everything, it's good to have a couple of tricks up your sleeve as far as polishing it and making stuff sound a little bit better. Let's see. That synth isn't even on. Trying to catch up with the chat. Nick says, did you hear the raw low end from my Hardware live? Yes, I did. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Hardware doesn't sound great live. And yours in particular was... But yours, Nick, was better than some of the other people. I'm not going to say anything, but it goes to show that just because it's Hardware does not a great bass sound make, is what I would say. Yeah. Hans Volt says, I own 5 Behringers, but I'm still a Behringer hater. I love that. Zilla, I think that Behringer's done more than just what Roland did when they put out the SEO2. Yeah, and technically it was, what's the company? Studio Electronics? I think, because Behringer had given up, or I'm sorry, Roland had given up on it. C-Ray Bates says, I care what people think about Behringer, but I would like to know what other synth manufacturers think about them. If they don't care, then why should we? I'm pretty sure they have a pretty strong opinion on it. When you just think of the sort of the UBXA versus OBX8 battle that went on behind the scenes with Sequential and Oberheim and everything. Let's get this synth popping. So first thing we need to do is add some LFO to this sound. And we need to get it more nasty. Turn that off real quick. We actually can use an inverted envelope and do the exact same thing we did over here, where by adding some attack, we should get a little pluck. How's it going, Pinto? We need to assign this to the VCA as well. How am I not getting any release? Come on. There we go. We need that chorus. Westbeth Kid, yes, you are correct. That is the Alpha Juno. You can hear that sort of hoovery thing. Sebastian asks, if the Alpha Juno 2 was a beer, what would it be? That's a great question. So, it's kind of hard to answer that one. I would say, like, the JX-3P, I forgot who said it earlier. I think it might have been Kenzie. I apologize if I'm misremembering that, but they said that JX-3P is what you get, the sound-wise, is what you're thinking of when you think analog synth. So for beer snobs, right, that would be like the hazy IPA, right? This is exactly what it says on the can. It is a hazy IPA. It tastes like pine trees and despair, and that's what people like. And I think that the JX-3P kind of hits that mark very nice because it's really warm. Arguably one of the warmest analog synths that Roland ever put out. The Alpha Juno 2, it's going to be a little bit more like a barley wine, or perhaps some sort of Flemish red sour ale, where it's not everybody's taste. I mean, even as I'm tweaking it, I'm aware of, like, I think this sounds awesome, but it does have a certain kind of sound to it that is a little bit... almost like you can't help but have a little of that Hoover thing going on. Alex West asked, did you ever have an original PG-200? No, I did not. I only ever had the PG-2K. I waited for this to come out. I think I pre-ordered it almost a year ahead of time. Westbeth Kid said, not a wheat beer, please. I love a good wheat beer as well. Yeah, Gingy says a Saison ale. That's a good ale. Nice call, Gingy. Flemish, Belgian. Johnny Morgan Synth Dreams. Oh my God, love your channel. Welcome. How's it going? Yeah, the Alpha Juno really is something special. But like I said, it's a little bit of one of those things where like you don't always want, a Hoover sound. I just love the way it purrs down there. Moving back to the JX-3P for a bit. You can get pretty damn close to that Hoover sound. Dubstation Zero, I agree. Johnny's Synth Dream channel, I love every time you come out with a video. It's like, it's an immediate watch for me. Actually sounding very close. Beating up the woofers in my the cones of my headphones. These are retroactive, so it's RETROAKTIV, retroactive. They make awesome stuff. Westbeth Kid, yeah, so that's going to be the primary difference between these synths. The JX-3P has 2 DCOs per voice. The Alpha Juno has a single DCO per voice that can output both saw, square, and a sub oscillator. So you get a lot from both of them, but in different ways. I would say that the lushness is going to be more the JX-3P thing, and the clarity is going to be more of the Alpha Juno thing, to summarize it way too closely. Now, Nick says, what is a Hoover sound? Never heard of it before. Alex says it's the sound of the 90s. One of the coolest things about this programmer, with the way they can spit out patches, is it actually has a category called dance that I don't think is on the other retroactive programmers, and it's like specifically Hoover and Eurotrash type sounds. So we'll just do that real quick, and you guys can hear some Hoover sounds. So this is a Hoover sound. This is a randomly generated Hoover sound. It's not a preset. Westbeth said that Hoover sound is when you start up your vacuum cleaner. So the name came from that it sounds like a vacuum cleaner. It was based off a preset Eric Person created for the synth called What The? But it's this kind of famous, like, and it comes from the Saw with mod oscillator in here. Just like a famously sort of sound to it. Little pitch bend too, of course. Like when Snake finds the wreckage of Air Force One. This is a Hoover sound. Usually has like a little bit of that pitch bend in there. Sebastian Cormer says, Dominator! I would love to go to Dominator Festival or Masters of Hardcore. I listen to a lot of that when I'm working out. Johnny says, JX-3P is so gnarly, so need to get my hands on one. Some say it's pretty similar sound to the JP8 in a lot of ways. I wonder how the JX-3P sounds next to a Juno 6. That would be a lot of fun to be able to do that comparison. The Juno 6 being arguably the best sounding of the three Junos, but I've never owned a Juno, or, I mean, I like a lot of people, I kind of put the Alpha Juno in its own category because it does have a different legacy, although I've made the argument that these things can sound very much like a Juno 106 or a Juno 60 or whatever, when you don't use things like the saw width mod and the really sharp oscillators. But it is famous for the sound, isn't it? Alex West asks, have you ever considered doubling the Alpha Juno? Yeah, you could, and that's a really cool feature on the MPG-50. Not only can you store patches, so I have the card in here so you can store like hundreds of patches, but you can actually control two Alpha Junos or two MKS-50s at the same time, or an Alpha Juno and an MKS-50, which is the rack mount version. So what you could do is you could pan this one hard right and hard left, the other one, and you would just have like a massive, massive wall of sound, which I think would be pretty cool. And you can even do sort of LA synthesis type stuff, or what you can do with the JX-10, where you can store into this two patches that output at the same time. So you can have one where it's like the attack section and one the sustain section, and layer them as well. So definitely a thing you could do. Johnny says glow sticks, everyone. Yeah. So why don't we've kind of compared like different bass sounds and stuff. Let's go ahead and patch gen again, and we'll just go over to initialize sound. Same thing over here. We will initialize this. And it's a little loud. And we'll try to do more of a really cool, why don't we go for like a like an Oberheim brass type sound. So what we need is to bring the cutoff down, add some envelope, assign that envelope to the filter. One of the tricks for Oberheim brass is to have this sustained at about 50%. So make sure this is assigned here too. But tighten it up. People say that the some detuning, but not nearly as much as we used before. We can also kick the good old chorus on here. So. So the lushness is it's just beautiful, right? Westbeth Kid says, wait a minute, is that wood panel on the Matrix 6? Yes, it is. So I've got the wood panels installed on this. It looks great, doesn't it? Absolutely. I didn't do it. I actually bought it from the original owner in the who got it in 85 or 86 or something like that, and he put the wood panels on it because he loved it so much. Corey, it does sound really good. Let's see if the Alpha Juno can do something similar. We're going to have to fake having an extra oscillator by using saw width mod. So that's going to be already kind of a compromise to the sound. So we're going to move, again, we've got sawtooth, we've got, you know, sort of like table saw, we've got many pulses, but none in the middle. Sounds pretty similar, but we can also use pulse width. So the first thing we're going to need to do is assign an envelope to the VCA and to the VCF. And we're going to use a good amount of both. I'm going to turn the chorus off for a second. A little slower. You can hear how much brighter it gets all of a sudden. And this is one of those areas where the aftertouch gets really great too. A lot of release helps. Actually very thick sounding, isn't it? Really thick. Let's add that chorus on, see what we get. Slow it down. Down a bit. See, it's got that like clarity. It like doesn't soften up the same way. And that resonance can be very bright. Yeah, it doesn't really need a lot of resonance. Going back to what we were saying earlier, it's just like the JX-3P just delivers exactly what people are looking for when they talk analog synths. Hashtag robust cheeks, Gingy. It's harder to get this one to lushen up, and that decay needs to be longer. We need more lushness. of sub-oscillator. Try to fatten it up that way. It's just interesting how this one, the Alpha Juno, just sort of always retains that clarity. You can't really get away from it. Hey, Seb, have a good night, okay? Take care. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I appreciate it. Cygnus Edge, welcome to the stream. Yeah, there is something magical about the JX-3P. Yeah, there's definitely, we've got some Canadians, we got some Europeans here. We got some different time. So yeah, I would say that's a pretty clear contender here. Let's try one more sound. I don't know what would be a good last sort of comparison type of sound. I don't know if we should do strings or maybe bells. Maybe we should try for bells. That's something I don't do that often. And we'll be able to use the cross mod over here. So why don't we try for that? So we're going to just do the, same thing. Just initialize the sound on both of these. Go back to the main. So we should have something that sounds a bit like, a synthesizer. Right. So to do a bell, the way I like to do it would be, let's go to square waves for both DCOs, but then increase the range to full octaves. Now, I want you to pay attention to something. Let's go over to the just the sawtooth wave here, and let's listen to how that sounds. Do you hear what I'm hearing? How there's that similar sort of characteristic to the harmonics, more in the mid-range. You can hear a difference. This is thinner. It doesn't have the low end. But you can hear how that's similar. So this is a sawtooth wave down here that's been chopped up to give it some more harmonics, wave-shaped to have more harmonics. This is two square waves apart from each other by 2 octaves. We can take this further by going up. Now, we're still using a sawtooth wave, but it's got even more of a bright sound than the square wave 2 octaves apart. It's almost like an additive synthesis thing. Right? Super interesting using these. So, what we can do now is let us go find that sweet, what is it, brass setting? I know it's here somewhere. Where is that motherfucker? Around here. We got glide, we got detune. The button for metalizing the sound. It's here somewhere. Oh, I know it's here. There we go, mode metal. So this metalizing sound is a really unique sort of cross-mod thing. Hey, thanks for subscribing. So we can get an even more harsh sort of sound, which would be super useful, especially if you add some detune. Maybe not. Maybe we'll try it without it. With Metalizer. Yeah, it's just super interesting how it kind of adds a lot of complexity to the sound. Yeah, it's just a little bit more bite. So we'll use that to try to get our bell sound. Let's apply a little shape to the sound, to the envelope. And what it is just kind of like 50% decay, 50% sustain, 50% release, no attack. Let's tighten it up. We're sort of in a bell-like territory. I want to give it a little bit more. We could, of course, just add the chorus, right? And then that's just like the cheat code for the synth. Really great analog bell sound. What's amazing is the metal mode's already taken off some of that low end, but I still think with a bell tone, we can actually bring out a little bit more. Yeah, definitely. Westpath, it's almost like a SID chip organ. Yeah. Well, can I get some scum organs in the chat? Y'all know how I feel about those. Going to the Alpha Juno, see what kind of bell tones we can get. We're going to start with that really annoying sound. We'll turn that off for a second. We'll pick a square wave as well. Yes, little ESQ1-ish, yeah, for sure. One of the coolest synths ever, by the way. I would love to get my hands on an ESQ1. I've got the SQ80, so it's kind of like maybe a little redundant for me, but I'd still love to check it out at some point. Let's go ahead and add some and then get these down to like 25% or so. So you can hear we're kind of in the neighborhood already, but let's add that other waveform in so we get that nice, crazy amount of high end. I mean, it sounds like it's octave, but those are actually the same range. We don't even need to crank it up. We can add the sub oscillator, right? Why not? Lot though, because again, we don't want to like overdo the low end. I might even high pass some of that out. Right, just a bit, bring the cutoff down. Just a little too much going to the envelope as well. I need that middle range here. A little more sustain, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Right, and then of course cheat code chorus. going to that F sharp or G sharp there, not in key at all. I don't know, which do you guys like better? It's funny, it does have like an organ type sound, doesn't it? I hate that. Have a good night, FD. So much fun getting a chance to see you recently. Appreciate it. Stranger Things Tubular Bells, that's hilarious. Go get some sleep, Zuzella. Have a wonderful night, okay? Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Johnny says, Stranger Things score is rad. It's actually has changed throughout the years to match synth progression in the 80s. Not many people know that. Oh, that's interesting. Like they started off like early 80s and then later 80s, that type of thing. Gingy says, Organ Daddy is smiling upon the tubular bells. I have truly become the thing I hate, Gingy. Westbeth, did you ever watch the Mike Oldfield or videotape performances with a band? No, I don't even know who that is, Westbeth. Johnny says, it went from analog to digital over the 4 seasons. That's hilarious. I never would have caught that. I haven't caught up with the most recent season yet. I think I watched the first 3. Aquatic says, I'm an organ fan. Very useful in various genres. I mean, yeah, of course, there's some of that. Vanish says, I actually like the Alpha better than the JX here. Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, it's kind of like where this thing stands out a little bit because it's the clarity, it's the purity of the sound. Over on the JX-3P, it's very analog, which is great. But you can't get away from like the... Yeah, it's definitely a little organ-y sort of a sound. But yeah, you know, this really is good for bells, and that's what they were going for, right? They wanted to compete with the DX7, so they added these waveforms in that have way more harmonic content. But on their own, like if I increase the cutoff here, this is going to be brutal. Well, it's okay. It's actually not that bad, but it's... You know, like that's where it kind of can stand out or sound really great is when you introduce the filter, because it does sound really good. Johnny says, both are so good in their own ways, but such a good comparison side to side. And that's why I do these videos, by the way, is because when you listen to a synth on its own, like when you're watching synth demos on YouTube, for instance, that's great. I love doing it. But the problem with it is that you're hearing the sound in such isolation as to you can't always judge it entirely. You're like, ooh, that sounds bassy, but it's only bassy compared to how it sounded before. Especially when you put two synths side by side, and they don't even have to be that similar, that's when you start to really discover, for me anyways, what's good about a certain synth. So for me, like, that would be my discovery tonight. Like, I wouldn't think Alpha Juno for bells. Maybe because I'm not that smart, but like now thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that is really good for bells. But I would have gone to the JX for the cross mod. That's not to say that the JX doesn't sound amazing. I mean, it does really sound great. Walter says, ironically, the Valhalla Screaming B3 organ library for the D50 is so good. I gotta check it out. Westbeth said, I used to have the DX7, literally the heaviest keyboard I've ever owned. I've lived in a 5-floor walk-up. It really fucking sucked. I love that. Dubstation says, the answer is both. The right amount of synths is always one more. Can I get some scum fire in the chat for that? I totally agree. So anyways, guys, I think that's a good place to call it for this evening. Checking out the two synths. Really, for me, they're like no-brainer synths. If you're getting into the world of vintage synthesizers, there's a lot of really expensive synths out there. And some of them don't even sound that great for how much they cost. JX-3P, Alpha Juno, man, those are just, they're great buys. And like I said earlier tonight, Alpha Juno for $500 on Guitar Center today. I was checking it out. Someone might have already bought it if you don't see it now. And a JX-3P for $700, right? Just incredible buys that you get right now because the synth market is a little depreciated right now. Things are a little down. That's a great time to buy, right? I mean, just think of it this way. The old saying of the stock market is buy low, sell high, right? Simplest thing in the world. Right now, the market is low. Now, some people aren't going to buy. They're going to be like, the market's over. It's done. Vintage synths are done. Sell everything. Vintage synths are not an investment, right? And I get where they're coming from. No one can predict the future, but my guess would be that we're going through like a temporary low, and this wouldn't be a bad time to get a vintage synth. That's not to say that the prices are going to skyrocket to the same price that they were, right? I don't think Juno 106s are going to go back to selling for $3,000 a pop anytime in the near future. But since like this, if you can get a JX-3P for like $700 with a Jupiter 8 filter built into it, that's crazy. That's an amazing deal, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's certainly a thing. Let's see here. Walter says he's in the member of the One More Club. Westbeth, I'm glad you learned something. Gingy, I'm glad you love the stream. This stream loves you, Gingy. Walter says Alex inadvertently sells so much gear. I'm not trying to give people gear acquisition syndrome, but what I hope is that some people won't buy 10, or even 5 or 4 brand new synths that all cost $2,000 a pop when you can get a lot of these vintage synths for such great deals. Really appreciate it, Johnny. Maybe you want to find a JX-3P now. Well, they're out there. If you can find one, they're really cool. Ambient Knots, welcome. People are paying me to take their organs. Yeah, I would love to remove every organ from this room. Walter says the Espen effect is real. Yo, no joke. I think a lot of people are going to take Espen at his word. This would not be a bad time to try to pick up a synth. Todd, welcome to the stream. I never view instruments as investments. I grab what I want to play. My instruments may end up being sold, but it'll be after I fall over dead at the Hammond at a show. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things too where it's the only reason I encourage people to think of vintage synths, at least maybe not as an investment, but as a, like to be conscious of it, is they are going to require repair, right? Eventually. And things like that make you do a different sort of calculus when it comes to money. I just don't want people to get screwed, pay too much money for something that they shouldn't. Those who fall in love with their synths and you just enjoy them. I am absolutely an organ donor. Now Nick says I got a CZ3000 for $200 and a DW8000 for $250. I love the DW8000. Hopefully get a chance to check out the CZ series soon. Walter, that's true. Some gear is only worth owning in VST form. Those two are worth owning for real. I agree very much. So anyways, guys, I appreciate you so much. I hope you have a safe week. Can't wait to see you next week. We'll have a new video up on the channel on Friday for a new product that's coming out. Really excited about that. Can't say anything more. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. See you Wednesday. Love and light, bitches. I am out.